everybody, my name is Emma, this is Emma Rose in Books, and I make videos about reading and writing and other bits every now and again. And in today's video I am going to review everything that I read in April, which was 4 books and an audiobook. Now I review books as I read them on Goodreads, so if you want you can follow me there, the links are below, and all my social media stuff and all that. But I like to do it in more detail here, so I do sort of 1 or 2 sentences as I read it on Goodreads, and then on here I can go into a little bit more rambly detail for you. So the first book that I read this month was on audiobook. I downloaded it from Overdrive via the library because I like that. Why does it need a reason? Anyway, and it was the book that you wish your parents had read and your children would be glad that you did. I think that's right. And it's by Philippa Perry, who's a psychotherapist. She's also the wife of Grayson Perry, if you're interested. I didn't realise that until I'd finished the book. I downloaded this book for the first time in, I think, January, and then I didn't finish it, had to return it, and then had to get in the queue again and listen to it again, like end of March, beginning of April. Not listen to it again, carried on. I wanted to read this book. I'd been interested in it because I'd heard people talking about it. I'd heard it referred to in like podcasts. I'd seen it going around, you know, Instagram and what have you. You know, I like parenting books. I've got 3 kids, so I'm interested. And I had very mixed feelings about this book. I gave it 3 stars on Goodreads because there were parts of it that I thought were excellent, parts of it that I didn't like at all. So, you know, I just kind of went somewhere in the middle. So basically, the concept behind this book is that as a parent, everything that you do is as a result of kind of your life, your preconceptions, your history, your all of this stuff. And so as you're parenting, if you react negatively to a situation, maybe it was because of how you were parented, or maybe it's something to do with your own life, and that maybe you need to analyse your own experiences and then use that to react better and to think about your actions and how they impact your child, and kind of making sure that things don't just keep cycling through generations, which, you know, we all know can happen. And that concept was very interesting. It's written by a psychotherapist, so obviously she can go into detail about that. There were some parts of the book that I thought were very good and very well explained, very interesting. The best part for me was the part about babies, because she explained about attachment parenting, which is a style that I prefer. The idea of attachment parenting is that you respond to a young child's cues and demands, and you know you're just constantly available, there, responsive, and because they know you're there, they have the security to then be independent, rather than an approach that might be more kind of promoting independence in sort of withdrawing, making them wait for things, making them play independently more. Do you know what I mean? Like that kind of. That's the difference. If you don't know what attachment parenting is, you can probably look it up and find a far better definition than that. It's hardly a definition, it was a rambly explanation. So, I thought that section was excellent because the way that she explained it was very good, giving different case studies and ideas and explaining the different areas of it. Just thought very, very well written. Even if you don't personally follow attachment parenting, it made a lot of sense. It explained it, and then obviously you can do what you want with that. I felt very comfortable with that part of the book. There were a lot of other parts of the book where I felt a bit blamed, if that makes sense, because here's the thing, no parent is perfect, absolutely nobody, and I felt like there were parts of it where, I mean, obviously it's like, if you do this, then this could happen. You know, if you parent like this, then this could be the result. You can have a child that's detached or uninteresting, or your child's gonna, I don't know, do drugs and go out and party and run away from home. I can't remember, but you know, it's like, and it felt a bit like, oh, like the pressure. And I don't like that in parenting things, because we are all human, we do all make mistakes. And although the important message of the book of reflecting, thinking about why you act a certain way, apologising if you get it wrong, all of that, that was all sound, but the book did just make me feel very sort of anxious, and I can't be this perfect. I also felt that, you know, the book didn't talk about what if you have multiple children? You know, I've got 3 children. I cannot humanly respond to all of them, you know, in the most perfect way, if that makes sense, because I'm pulled 3 ways. You know, like everybody, you know, we've got job and we got a job. We've got jobs, we've got life stuff, and you're tired, you've been up all night, you've got, you know, and so you don't always respond perfectly, and the more children you have, in some ways the harder it is. And so yeah, that kind of guilt thing I didn't like. There was one part of the book in particular that made me feel like that, and I know it wasn't what was meant, so let me explain that it was a case study of a couple who work all the time and are just emotionally unavailable for their child, and their child unfortunately attempted suicide, and they then sort of worked that out and made sure that they were more available and, you know, worked on it with him. But for me, although I get it, and I get that that was the point, there was a part of me that was like, oh my god, like if I'm working a lot and I'm working really hard and I'm unavailable because I'm busy and this, then, you know, then you're giving me this scenario that this terrible thing could happen. And yeah, it's just very hard when there's part of your brain that's saying, well, no, that makes sense. It makes sense how she explained it. And of course that could happen, and you need to think about it reflectively and try your best. There's another part of me that's like, I can't keep up with this standard that you're suggesting. So yeah, I think maybe if the book had more of like, you're not going to achieve all of this because, you know, you're human, so, you know, do your best. Yeah, it was a bit much, is my best way of explaining it. There were a few parts of it that I really didn't like. I actually really didn't like the narration style, which, I mean, it's narrated by the author. Just, I can't even put my finger on why I don't get on with a particular narrator. It was just a personal, couldn't get into it kind of thing. In particular, I didn't like her character voices. It's a thing. It's just sometimes you read a book, any book with any narrator, and you don't like the character voices that they put on, and it throws you out, you know, you're like, oh, I don't like that. And I found that with this. It's part of why it took me so long to get through it. That and the kind of anxiety over it. So yeah, for me, it's like it was good bits. There were definitely good messages in it. But I just found it a bit much. And certainly, as I say, with somebody who's got, if you had one child that you could be really reflective and thoughtful and make, you know, then possibly, but with multiple children where you can't physically think about every way that you speak to them and every way you respond to their demands and their requests and what they say and what it was just like, so yeah, no, not keen on that one. But, you know, it's been really well received by some people, so give it a try and see how you feel. But for me, patchy is my best way of describing it, which, as I say, is why I put it at 3 stars. It was like, some bits I liked, some bits I didn't, so yeah, we'll put it in the middle at 3 stars. The next book I read was Apple Tree Yard by Louise Doughty. This was given to me and I just didn't get around to it because sometimes, you know, when a book has been given to you, it's not necessarily one you would pick up yourself, you know, so it just took me a while. It's a BBC drama that I haven't seen. It says Yvonne Carmichael, who's like a middle-aged woman, has a high-flying career, a beautiful home and a good marriage, but when she meets a stranger, she's drawn into a passionate affair. Keeping the 2 halves of her life separate seems easy at first, but she can't control what happens next. This is a thriller. It's very slow-paced, and I think that's why it works, is because all the things that happen, there's so much reasoning, there's so much, like, you're really in the head of the main character, of why she's making the choices that she is, why she's reacting the way that she is, and all the things that happen and how she sees it, and that, so it makes it believable because you're like, well, yeah, of course you're going to react like that because of how you've been explaining things as it goes, if that makes sense. So yeah, she kind of has this passionate affair that comes out of absolutely nowhere with a complete stranger, and it's just very kind of slow, and it builds, it's got a lot of tension, I just thought it was very, very good. I've read quite a few thrillers, and a lot of them, what I often find with thrillers is there's usually like a massive denouement at the end that's just too much. Often you get like a character who's like, yes, and the reason I did this was because of this. And, you know, somebody who's just like a bit suddenly explains everything in a really long explanation about how they're such a supervillain. So that's a real turn off for me in a lot of thrillers. But this one, I mean, there's stuff that you could see coming. There's stuff that you couldn't. There's a lot of kind of interesting legal stuff in it. It verges on a crime book. there is stuff in it that's unbelievable in the plot, especially when you're in it and you're reading it from her point of view. I just was totally believed everything that she said, but then when you're away from it, you're like, nah, I don't know. Would you really respond like that? So, but yeah, I really enjoyed reading it. I read it in a couple of days. I found it very gripping. I like the writing style. Personally, for me, it's one of the better thrillers that I've read. So, yeah. Liked it a lot. I think I gave it 4 stars or something, you know, it's decent, it's a good read. Then I think I read Journeys in the Wild by Gavin Thurston. I picked this up in the library. In fact, I'd seen this in the library about 3 or 4 months ago and taken a picture of it because I thought the cover was lovely. It's a really nice hardback with really nice colours, and I was just drawn to it and read it and went, ooh, took a picture of it so I could remember it. And then when the libraries were closing before lockdown, I went panic library buying. I was like, oh, where's that picture of that book? I want that. And luckily they still had it. So I grabbed this. Now, Gavin Thurston is one of the photographers who works with Attenborough. So he's worked on Blue Planet, he's worked on Planet Earth, but not only that, he's done other photography projects. He's worked on like space things. He mostly does natural life things, but he's also done space stuff. And this is his memoirs, basically. It's a diary type thingy, so you can read just one diary entry. You know, it makes it quite readable because you can just read one little bit of it, and it's nice, short, sharp sections. The writing style is very British to me. It's very dry, and yeah, there's just something about it that is very kind of British. I don't know. And the anecdotes are just fantastic. It really gives you a sense of what goes behind filming these things, particularly the part about going down in submersibles for Blue Planet was amazing. He gets into all these horrendous situations where you can see that had it gone slightly differently, he wouldn't have made it. You know, you've got all these encounters with like massive animals or poisonous animals or whatever. So yeah, it's a real, but despite that, that's a couple of pages, you know, that's that diary entry, and you're on to the next one. So there's loads of adventure. If you love nature documentaries, which I really do, and I really like Attenborough, Blue Planet is like one of my favourite things in the world. So yeah, I would really recommend, if you're into that kind of thing, this is an excellent diary memoir type of thing. And in fact, we were watching Frozen Planet the other day, and they were like, oh, and now to Gavin Thurston. We were like, that's him, because my son has been reading bits of this as well. So really, really liked this. I gave it 5 stars. I just found it so interesting and really well written. It's got photos in the middle of it of some of the stuff that it talks about. Yeah, I don't know, really, really good. If you're like a nature type person, I think you'll find that really, really interesting. Then another one that I picked up from the library before it closed, which was Waste Not Every Day. This is just a little like tips book about zero waste and minimal waste kind of stuff. And I thought it was pretty good. It's really nicely laid out. It's like all these pastel colours. It's got 365 tips, so in theory you could read one a day. It's really beautifully set out, and I think would make quite a nice like little gift or coffee table book, that kind of thing. For me, not to say that I'm zero waste, because I'm absolutely not, but I'm very interested in things like minimalism and being as kind of eco-friendly as I can and all this stuff. And we do loads, like we're really conscientious of what we use, what we buy, what we throw away, what we repurpose, you know, not wasting lots of things. So in general, there wasn't really that much in there that I didn't already know, and if it was things I don't do, there's a reason I don't do them, you know, like it just doesn't work in our life. Or so there was no part of it was like, oh, that's a great idea, I'm going to try that. Bar one, which was that it said you can boil your old soap ends in a bit of water and make liquid soap out of it. I was like, oh, that's really good. At the time I had a bit of some leftover soap that we were using up, and I was like, actually, I'm going to turn that up into some liquid soap because we haven't got any at the minute. And made it and put it into our like porcelain, I don't know, ceramic soap dispenser thing that we have in our downstairs bathroom. And it just turned solid again, and then I had to melt it back out, which took ages. So that didn't work at all. Maybe I'm missing something, but you cannot just melt soap down and add some water and then it turns into liquid soap. That just, it doesn't work. So there's that. Yeah, there's some nice little facts in it. There were some good sea creature facts in it about, I don't know, plastic in the sea and stuff like that. I'm not going to be able to find them at this kind of sudden moment. I did put them on Instagram, actually. But yeah, there's a couple of little facts. But let's see. Let's give you some ad hoc little suggestions. Let's see. Pack the picnic plates from home on road trips or to a local festival to avoid takeaway in disposable containers. I mean, we do that. 30 years ago, Americans were throwing out 1 billion plastic razors each year. That's at least 60 billion discarded since then, swapped to a safety razor, where only the blades need to be replaced and are recyclable, using a shaving soap bar instead of the foaming packaged option, which we do. So yeah, I mean, we don't do all of them, but there was a lot where I was like, no, we already do that, or we've thought about that, it didn't work. But yeah, they're nice, you know, it's all backed up with facts and information and stuff. So yeah, it's a good little book, but I personally didn't get anything from it really. But maybe a nice gift for somebody. And as I say, if you're interested in, I think if you're a beginner, it's great, because I read this in a couple of hours, maybe even only in an hour. You know, you can flick through it really quickly, take a lot from it, have lots of ideas. You could like bookmark them all. I'm going to try that, and I'm going to, you know. So it is a good book. It just, I think you'd have to be a beginner really. Right. So then the last book that I read in April was Peter Pan by J.M. Barrie. This is my book that I've had since I was a kid. It's, as you can see, it's like really sun damaged and dust damaged, bookshelf damaged, I don't know, but I've had this since I was really little. I've read this book loads and loads of times because this is literally my book. But what we've been doing for homeschool is reading a chapter of a book every day. And so this is the first one that we finished. And I think it was good that they read this with me, because the text is quite, it's very dense because it's old, you know, it's 100 years old, more than that. So they found the language quite hard, and certain words they might not have been able to read, but because I was reading it out, they, you know, also because you put tone into it, they can kind of understand what you're getting at, even if they haven't heard the word before, if you know what I mean. So I think it was a bit more accessible having it read out rather than trying to read it themselves. They really liked finding out what the differences are between this and Disney, and we'd read a part and they'd be like, oh, that didn't happen in the film, oh, that's different, or, you know, so that was really nice. It prompted a lot of conversations about how, you know, for example, the references to the Redskins, and that's not a word that you would use now, why you wouldn't use that word anymore, and how they're portrayed, because there's a couple of the bits that are a bit, oh, so being able to talk about that and say why that's not actually a way that somebody would write or talk now, or, you know, so that was good. Also, the portrayal of Wendy and Mrs. Darling in this, the fact that, you know, Wendy is just, she becomes all of their mother, because she wouldn't become one of the lost boys and have adventures. She's all about kind of making sure they get to bed on time and darning their socks, you know, that kind of thing. So a bit of a chat about feminism, you know, equality in general. But yes, that was interesting. It's got a lot of interesting themes in it, really. Thinking about kind of the concept of like childhood and adulthood and parenting, and so there's a lot about what a mother is and the portrayals of Wendy's father, and the ideas of like, is this a dream, and thinking about like how your brain works, what's a child like, the fact that they're portrayed as very, very selfish. Yeah, a lot of interesting ideas. I do know as well that there's all kind of that J.M. Barrie based this book on some children that he kind of slightly dodgily ended up, being their guardian. He altered their parents' will so that he could be their guardian. He had these 4 boys, which, and people said that he was asexual, you know, and that there was nothing dodgy going on there, but it's obviously a strange scenario. And he met these boys in the park and sort of then started hanging out with them. I don't know. So there's a bit of a strange kind of thing going on there, and kind of that whole concept of like childhood and perception and like the backstory of it as well, which I think is interesting to reflect on. So, you know, there's things as an adult that obviously I thought about, and you read between the lines a little bit, but for the kids, it was a lot about how this story is different, why is it different, thinking about the age of the book and the way that the language works, and and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it was an interesting read. They liked it. They liked the story. There were a few bits I had to explain. So they were like, we don't know what's going on here. We're really confused. So yeah, it was an interesting read. It was a good source of conversation, and as I said, they liked the story. It's very adventurous and yeah, like a modern day fairy tale, is it? I don't know, but you know, so definitely an interesting idea, very fantastical and all of that. So we enjoyed it. I think I gave it sort of 4 stars or something. For me, it's very what's the word, nostalgic, because I read it a lot when I was a kid, because I used to just read books over and over again. So yeah, there's a lot of parts of it that I've forgotten, and when you're reading it, oh yeah, I really love this bit. So yeah, an interesting month's reading, as usual, a whole variety of stuff, you know what I'm like. So yeah, these and an audiobook. At the moment I'm still reading, what's it called? My Everything I Have Learned About Love, is that right? By Dolly Alderton, which I'm enjoying, but I'm just reading really slowly because things have been manic. But, you know, so anyway, let me know what you've been reading. Have you read any of these? What do you think? I love hearing your opinions. Leave me some recommendations. Let's see, what would I like to read? I want to read some non-fiction, particularly animal-y stuff, parenty stuff. Yeah, that's what I fancy. Tell me what you've been reading lately that's good in those kind of categories. Yeah, so please like this video if you did. As I say, please leave me comments. I'd love to have a chat with you in the comment section. Subscribe if you haven't already. By the way, just another quick thank you so much for 1,000 subscribers. My last video was like a celebratory music parody that I felt like doing. But yeah, to everyone who subscribed and everyone who interacts with my videos, just thank you. It's so appreciated. Yeah, it means the world, really does. So yeah, thank you. Rather than me singing a song and not actually being able to say thank you. So I want to take the opportunity here. Thank you so much. And yeah, nice way to end. I hope you're all right. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you all for another video next week. Take care.